Actually, first thing I want to say is it's Gasper, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I have been saying your name wrong on every podcast. So this is me apologizing ahead of time. I've been saying Jasper, and I don't know what it is. Like I just kept on saying, and like I was interviewing Jake, and he kept on saying Jasper, and I said Jasper again. I was like, I'm like editing the clips. I'm like, do I really want to post this? Because I'm like continuously saying this guy's name wrong. So
Listen, I have been called every wrong name in the book my whole life. So like it's nothing new to me that, calling me by the wrong name, it's normal. I wouldn't
yeah,
expect you to call me by my right name, put it that way.
for sure. All right, I'd like to welcome to the show from the Trust a Game of Greed. Gasper, how are you today, man?
I'm doing good. I'm doing well. I'm just put my kids to bed and that's it. Now now my third job starts of, social media stuff and all that other crap.
Man, it's a heck of a balance, right? You know what I mean? It's like real life, life with the family, social media, and everything, man. It's always hard to kind of just juggle it all together. But yeah,
But what's crazy is like the the juxtaposition of all the worlds. Like I'm a teacher in the day. Like that's my real job. I'm a teacher. So like this morning, but I also do stand-up comedy on the side. So this morning I'm doing shows in Rochester, New York this weekend. So they were like, "Hey, can you jump on and do a morning radio show?" So I said, a morning news show, an interview. I said, "Sure, but not between the hours of 8 and 3." And they're like, "Oh crap." They're like, "Well, what about 7:40?" So I was like, "That I can do, but I'm going to be in my classroom and like you might hear kids like starting to come in." And they were like, "Yeah, that's perfectly fine." So like here I am like interviewing at 7:40 for 10 minutes, then like the bell rang, then I started teaching. It was just like, and then your phone goes off through the whole day of comments, of messages, of Reddit articles, and you're like, holy crap, like you can't actually ever escape it. It's cool, but it's just like I'm like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be a teacher right now. Like I can't just, read articles that are published about me.
yeah, for sure. It's kind of crazy, and I'd like to take the audiences back a little bit. What was the casting process like for you?
So for me, mine was kind of interesting. So I had to audition for another show for the History Channel. Well, I don't know if it was for the History Channel, but about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they needed some casting call was for someone who knew history and was a comedian. And I was like, oh, I'm a history teacher who does stand-up comedy. Like that's me. So I auditioned. I went pretty far in the audition process and things went really well, but then I didn't get it because that's show business or whatever. And then I thought nothing of it. Fast forward like almost a year, maybe more, and the casting director who was on that job called me, and she's like, "Not sure if you remember me. My name's so and so. I had auditioned you for this, this, and this. Would you be interested in trying out for another show? We think you'd be great at it." So I was like, "Yeah, whatever." Like, because it's just like with this business, everything's always like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, we want you, we want you, we want you," and then you never hear from them again. So I was like, "Sure." I audition, get to the next round, audition, get to the next round, next round, next round. I'm like, oh shit, like this is actually kind of happening a little. And then that was maybe in October. Now come like January, they call me and they're like, hey, don't book any shows and stand up for March. And I was like, well, why? Like, am I getting it or like just don't book because you might get it? And they're like, well, just don't book. But there was no guarantee. But then I'm like, all right, I am pretty far in this casting process. So like maybe I'll just take a month off from stand up and see what happens. But like I did have a real job. It's not like I could just be like, oh, I'm not going to work. So I had to like really figure a lot of things out. Basically, tell my job like I don't know what's happening. I might get on a show, I might not. So with my job, I wasn't allowed to like just take a leave. Like people are like, why don't you just take it doesn't work like that. For to be a teacher, you can't get paid from two where I work. You can't get paid from two entities at the same time. So it's not like I could get paid and go do the show. I couldn't use sick days. I couldn't, there's no vacation days for a teacher because you get the whole summer off. So I basically I had to resign from my position as a teacher and take a chance, take a gamble that I'll be able to come home and get my position back. I had to full on resign, like give up my benefits, give up my salary, give up everything. Thankfully, my wife also has a job with benefits, so I went on my wife's benefits. I'm not like a degenerate. Like people on the internet are like, you just left your whole family with nothing. I'm like, we had a plan. Like I'm not, I'm an adult. Like I didn't just throw caution to the wind. And I just figured I would get back and figure it out. Like there's always a need for teachers. It's not like I got fired. I have 2 master's degrees in teaching. So like I would be able to figure it out. And I did. So I came back, I got a job, I got rehired. In the end, I lost 2 months of pay, which I won the show. So it evened out.
Right, exactly, and then everything kind of worked out. It's crazy to think about that, though. It's crazy to hear that dynamic of how it all works out. But it's like, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there's a lot of people out here that are chasing passions but working full jobs while chasing the passion. I mean, that's kind of how you have to do this nowadays in society. I mean, that's what I do. That's why we're here at, like you said, I mean, 8, 9 o'clock at night. That's why we're here where we are.
Yeah.
What
Because
was
like
the
you can't, the reality is like, sure, I'd love to pursue a career in entertainment, but unfortunately, a career in entertainment doesn't pay the bills. And like, had I not
exactly?
won the show, financially it would not have really been a good decision for me to be on the show. Like it worked out because I won. Other than that, I would have been like, damn, I should just stay a teacher.
Right. I should have just stayed home for this one.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so obviously I've heard a lot of different, when you guys really didn't know kind of what the show was about until you guys arrived, when you guys were on that cliff type of scenario. But what was that first like 24 hours in the house like for you?
So the thing is with me, I mean, you watch the show, like I have a good time no matter where I am. So like you could look around. I mean, you could look around and you could realize like, damn, these people are here to like be cutthroat. They're here to be playing a game. I was just there. I was like, here I am. I'm gonna enjoy whatever this is because to me, like I just said to myself, like let me feel it all out and see what happens. Like we didn't know anything. I didn't know these people. Now, granted, like, and I've said this before, and like I love Brian, right? Brian's my boy. Like everyone knew that from watching the show, how close we were. But like Brian and I are very different, obviously. And like Brian told me the best thing Brian told me, we were in LA about a month ago, and Brian had told me that there was like more people in the lobby of the hotel than there were that he's seen in the last month. And there was 4 people in the lobby of the hotel. Like Brian's like, I only see my wife and my kid in a month. I work in one of the largest high schools in New York City. I cross paths with 4,000 people every day. And that's just at work. Then I go to the supermarket. I do this, I do that. So, like, being around new people, being around people, it's not like that crazy to me. It's very normal. And then doing stand-up comedy, traveling, being on the road a lot, like you are kind of forced to talk to people, adjust, make friends, interact. So like that part of it, whereas in like people were like feeling each other out, like like Brian's like I was, cautious about everybody because I don't know people. Like to me, it was just like you're people. I'm gonna look at everybody like they're people. And if you're an asshole to me, then I'm not gonna be your friend. But if you're nice, I got no reason not to be nice to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, yeah, it's crazy because again, you don't really know, but you kind of find out what the show's about. But at the same time, it's like I'm gonna get a vibe for kind of what's going on in the house here, and obviously within that first, I don't 20 48 hours or Joel's was kind of eliminated. It's like, was that kind of like a triggering moment of like, oh, okay, game on?
Um, yes and no, because like at the end of the day, the whole concept that anybody keep in mind we knew nothing about the show. I know everybody's probably reiterated that we knew nothing. So like I think that the whole concept that one vote can get you out really did mess with you. So although I was friendly with everybody, and like I never had a vote put on me once. But even though you never had a vote, nobody ever really wanted me out to my knowledge. But you're still every time you're sitting at that table, your heart is racing because you don't know what someone's going to say because all it takes is one person just be like, you know what? let me just throw a rogue vote on Gaspar because I'm nervous that I'm going to get voted for. So let me vote for Gaspar. And then I'm there thinking that. And then I'm like, all right, let me just vote for Ricky. Let me just, and then you go down the line, everyone throws a rogue vote because you're nervous. But I just kind of said, like, I can't go in starting with rogue votes because that kind of defeats the purpose. But obviously, not everybody felt that way. But in my head, I was like, that doesn't make sense to me to do that.
Yeah, it was crazy how like on in one aspect, and then it was kind of like a little quiet for a little bit, but then obviously Bryce's elimination really kind of triggered some real strong backlash where we saw you, Brian, and Jake kind of go on the defensive here, and they're like, all right, if we don't do something, it's gonna be us, right? And that's kind of where you guys were at, right?
Well, yeah, because that's the thing. Like originally, you want to believe, all right, Joel's fine. He did lie. They thought we didn't even know he was lying until we watched the trailer. But he did lie. He gave off a vibe. Okay, you can figure it out. Simone rubbed people the wrong way. Okay, fine. Then you're like, all right, now Bryce is next, and then you're like, all right, people are going home every time. Like, so we're like, oh, this isn't just like a they wronged me, so I'm going to go after them. This is just like, we're going to get rid of everybody. So I kind of was like, oh, we need to start also playing the game and keep some numbers while we still had the opportunity to keep numbers.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that no, we see that kind of Winnie was that first target. Was it because I felt like, she was probably I would say she probably was the one of the strongest players throughout the entire competition, in my opinion. Just how she kind of moved within the house. Was that the reason you cut? And I know it was kind of like cut the head off the snake type of thing, but was that the reason to target her because she was kind of that main, person?
Yeah, I mean, so what the show doesn't show is that there's so much more than what the show shows. Obviously, you're filming people 24 hours, you're cutting it down to 40 minutes, 3 days, so you're talking 24, 48, 72 hours cut into 45 minutes. So it's like you're really getting a very, very microscopic view of it. What they don't really show is me, believe it or not, and I know it's going to sound crazy because it's not shown at all. Myself, Brian, and Tolu we're all really close. They never show that. Like to the point where like it was mind-boggling to us to watch. Like I thought like everyone was gonna see how me, Tolo, and Brian were friends. You wouldn't even know we knew each other. There's small snippets of it where she's like, Gaspar and Brian are the best guys I know. She's always complimenting us, but you don't actually see the interactions of it. So it was hard. Like, keep in mind, Lindsey, we thought was on our team. We never really knew she was on the other team. So Lindsey was with us. Tolu, to our knowledge, we knew she was close with Winnie, but she was also close with us. Like the show depicted this very much boys versus girls alliance. That really wasn't the case because Jake and Julie were a thing. Me, Brian, and Tolu were a thing. Then me, Brian, Jake were a thing. But so then by default, Julie was with them and Tolu was with us and Lindsey was with us. You know what I mean? So really, Winnie and Mama J really never were kind of interacting with us as far as like, yes, were we friends? Of course, you're all in the house together. Mama J and I slept next to each other. You know what I mean? So like her and I were friendly. Also, I had no issues with Mama J. You know what I mean? Like she was never an issue for me. But so it's kind of like, yeah, yes, Winnie can say, well, I was friends with everybody. She was friends. We all ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner together. We all hung out throughout the day. But as far as close relationships go, she was the least close with us. So it just kind of made us start to think, well, why is she the least close? Well, maybe she's leading. And then, and then you're hearing Lindsey and not really, I don't want to throw anybody's names in, but like you're hearing people saying like, well, Winnie wants you guys out. Winnie wants Jake out. Winnie wants Brian out. So you start doing the dominoes. If Jake goes, then Brian goes, I'm next. So it's reality. They're not going to go after Lindsey. They're not going after Tolu. They're not going after Julie. They're all on their team. So it just kind of was logic for us.
Yeah, it's crazy because I saw the video of obviously you and Brian talking after the show with the when you guys had the little mini reunion there that like you guys talked about your relationship with Tolu. It's crazy to see and hear that because when you watch the show, like you literally, it is. I mean, let's call spade a spade. It was edited, which all shows are edited, but it's edited to be very much girls versus boys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was, and it comes off strongly as that, especially early on in the show. Based on it trying to figure out who the audience is supposed to like and dislike.
And that's the thing, like, Tolu's the villain in a lot of ways. Tolu's a villain. Brian and I were not villains. So I guess from an editing standpoint, it doesn't really fully make sense to show me, Tolu, and Brian all hanging out because then you say to yourself as an audience, wait, I thought that this girl was supposed to be the big bad wolf and she's hanging out with the two pigs. Like, it's not really making sense. So like I get it from their perspective, and I give Netflix a lot of credit because I feel like Netflix cleared that up by airing that stuff that me and Brian saying, hey, we were close with Tolu. Because if you wanted to bury that, you just don't air that. And then that never exists, except for the few small things that we do independently. So I thought that was cool on Netflix's part to be like, no, 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 Tolu actually was friends with them. It just didn't air. So, and there was little, like I said, there was little snippets of it. Like she would run over to us and we'd always be hugging her and talking to her. So like you could see it, but it was more at the end, which then prompts like the internet troll people to be like, she was only sucking up to you guys in the end because she wanted to survive. It's like, no, she was with us the whole time, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy because I feel like when you watch, even when you watch it, you really it's been a minute since I've watched it, but like
Of
watching it
course.
back, I really don't ever remember you or Brian really saying Tolu. You know what I mean? Like as the person to get rid of, you don't really ever have that, and I think that kind of comes to fruition with the kind of the massive twist that I didn't see coming, but I really loved, and that was the strategic move that you made to vote out Lindsey. Take us behind kind of what was going through your head leading into that vote. And it was probably a lot of what we saw kind of unfold, but take us behind what you thought.
So it's multifaceted, obviously. Number one, Lindsey, whoa, she was there was a lot going on with Lindsey in the house. And like I said, we thought she was with us. The girls fully thought she was with them. We fully thought she was with us. So like they didn't air this, but I used the analogy like when I was at the cliff talking to Brooke, I said, if you're on two teams, you're on no team. It's like it's a football analogy too. Like if you have, I don't know if you're a football fan, but like if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have any quarterbacks. Like that's kind of the logic that I look at it. So like you're telling us you're with us. You're telling them you're with them, but you're not telling either team that you're a double agent spy. So when it was revealed at the poker game that the girls were so shocked and so hurt, that kind of told us everything we needed to know. Because if you're really on our team, why would the girls be so shocked? And if you're being a double agent playing both sides, then they shouldn't be shocked. They should be like, hell yeah, girl. Like you've infiltrated the other side. They trust you. But their reaction was so angry that it basically told us everything we needed to know. Then fast forward, she comes down and curses us all out and yells at us, which then was like, oh, then Brian and I were trying to talk and she's listening in. And it was just, that was like the final nail in the coffin. There is a scene that I thought for sure would have aired, but it didn't. But basically, Tolu and I are sitting at the dinner table after everybody like had gone to bed, and Tolu's like, "Listen, I'm not telling you this to try to." And mind you, this was a very normal thing. Her and I hung out every night, even after the fight, after everything with Winnie going home. She was still my girl. She was still my friend. So like, we're sitting at the dinner table, and she said, "I just want to walk you through some things when." You thought Lindsey was on your side. This is what was going on. And when Lindsey was coming to you, she was coming to us right after. And when Lindsey went to us, she went to you and started breaking down things. And I was like, you're right. And she said it too. She's like, we both got played. Like, we thought she was with us too. And then when that list came out, when we were sitting on the beanbags and the list came out and Lindsey's like, oh, had eliminated, she had a hand in every single person's elimination. If you were really ever on our team, you shouldn't have had a hand in any eliminations because our team didn't touch anybody. So it was like, and and when Tolu showed her list, it was everybody that we knew she voted for. She was always up front. I'm voting for this person. I'm voting for this person. So it was like Tolu was never a threat to me. But to me, Lindsey was scary because Bryce never saw Lindsey coming. Joel's never saw Lindsey coming. Simone never, like, no one ever saw Lindsey coming, and they all got a vote. So although I personally didn't think that Lindsey was coming for me ever, which is, we shared a room, we were friendly. I do think that one of the people that I was aligned with would have gotten the axe eventually. And watching it back, Lindsey from day one was like, hey, I want as many people gone as possible. So like there would have been the Lindsey Tolu vote, which would have canceled each other out. Then Tolu would have got voted out in the end anyway. Or maybe, I don't know. But like I just didn't want to leave things up for chance. And I felt like to protect the people that and mind you, also the show didn't really show. There was a lot more knowledge that Brian and Jake had about Lindsey going into the final vote. They didn't pull the trigger on the vote, but they weren't like shocked that like she went home. Like they were like, oh yeah. Like we this was also part of our plan. It just there's a lot of things that TV shows do. Like once you start getting rolling, like let's make an idea. They're like, let's have a voting ceremony right now before you can all figure this out. So
Yeah, that's one thing for sure. Yeah, because it was like there was an unpredictability about having her around because I mean, she voted Bryce out, which like that's the person Bryce was the closest to. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, I mean,
who's to say that that doesn't happen, or who's to say she doesn't overhear a conversation? Because even Jake was telling me that you and him and Brian had a lot more strategic talks that we don't see. Like he said that you guys talked a lot about strategy that we kind of don't see unfold throughout the filming as well, right?
yeah, like you don't see any of it, and it's funny because like on Reddit and all that, they're like, "Oh, Gaspar doesn't even know he's on a show," and I'm like, like I knew I was on a show. We just like they didn't show it. Like we were very aware of every move that was being made, and like you said, like Bryce and mind you, Bryce and I were also close. So I shared a room with Bryce, Mama J, and Lindsey. So although they don't really show me and Mama J being close, there is that scene where she's like, "Oh, we're gonna put my suntan lotion on and help me put my bathing suit on," because like we would talk and joke all day. So like Bryce and I were very close because Bryce knew sign language and so do I. So Bryce and I used to do sign language together all the time, which none of it aired. So like we talked about that. Lindsey has kids, I have kids, we have the same age kids. So like we would all talk. So they don't really show any of that. They also don't show that me, Jake, and Brian, they don't even really show that we were close. It just looked like we were just three guys in the house and we were like, hey, you're a guy, I'm a guy, let's be together. But we were like very much like, all right, this is what's going on in this room. We had it all mapped out. I mean, clearly, I mean, we won. So like we knew what the hell we were doing. We didn't just get lucky.
Did at any point in time, obviously we see you in the vault for maybe 30 seconds. Did any point in time when you were in there, did you consider taking any of that money?
Hell no.
No?
I mean, listen, I am not rich by any means. It was the money was not enough to say this is the final ending. Let me screw it up now because mind you, we don't know anything about after you leave that vault. We didn't know what the next steps were. So for all we knew, like we had spoken about it, like for all you know, you walk out of that vault and there's like a sign that says Gaspar took the money. So you know what I'm saying? So like, why would I risk it? I go that far to risk it in the end. I personally, once we hit that final five, I knew I was winning. You know what I mean? Like I was like, there's really nothing. And I'm sure Brian probably felt that same security. Tolu definitely didn't. Jake didn't with Tolu there. But it was one of those things like Julie was very much like Jake was always like, guys, Julie's good. I promise she will do the right thing and like and kind of vouch for her. And I felt that way about Tolu. Like I was like, guys, just trust me. She will do right by us. Like she's not, she's not looking to get anybody out. So it was like one of those things like we all kind of had like we were in our own corners. Like they might not have necessarily gotten along, Jake and Tolu, but it was like this mutual understanding of like, I won't vote you, you won't vote me. Let's both get the hell out of here with the money. So like for me, it was like, why screw it up now and touch the money?
Yeah, for sure, and I agree with that 100%. And that's it's the crazy thing because I've seen a lot of things on the internet about the whole Tolu strategy. And I'm like, obviously, there's one way you look at it. I 100% agree. If I was Tolu, I probably would have taken the money too because there was that wild card there of uncertainty with Jake. You know what I mean? You don't know what's going to happen. So I walk away with 25K instead of $0. Like that's all. Like even you said that. You know what I mean? If I feel like if you were in a Tolu's position, maybe you do too because again, you went to this experiment, took a risk, financially across the board back home, like maybe at that point you take that money as well.
Yeah,
So
I said it on multiple times. If right now, 24 hours ago, everybody in the house was going to eliminate me, and now all of a sudden everybody's like, no, we like you, we trust you. Why would I fully feel secure in that? So I would have said 25 is better than nothing. If it's announced that I took the money, at least I walk away with 25,000 and I go home.
yeah, for sure. And was there any? And obviously, like you said, I agree with you. Like headspace wise, even with Julie, I feel like the three of you walking into that final scene there was like, all right, I feel comfortable going home with what I was. So obviously, the first initial reaction was the money was $25,000 less than what it was. Did you suspect it was Tolu?
I mean, I knew right away because I knew it wasn't me. I knew it wasn't Brian. I knew it wasn't Jake. Like I knew none of us were going to touch it. Then I look at Julie and Julie was just as shocked. Like what I love about that scene is that's all genuine reactions. Like there's no retake, there's no like other angle. Like you could see everybody doing the math going, what the fuck? And like that was real. Like, and then I looked at Tolu and she couldn't look at me. So once Tolu couldn't look up at me, I knew she took the money. You know what I mean? And then, like, I had wished that they had told us the money was taken, and then made us vote because I think that would have made it a little more intense. Because then it would have, but Tolu would have just went home. That would have been the end of it. Like because no one would have thought. And we were at the initial reaction, we were mad. In hindsight, looking back, even the next day, I was able to understand. But in that moment, you're like, especially from my perspective, because it's like, Tolo, I freaking vouched for you. I trusted you. I told you you were safe. Like I had everybody it told me she's safe, and I knew they wouldn't lie to me. You know what I mean? And it was like, why? But from her perspective, I get it. You know what I mean? You don't even know if I'm fully telling you the truth. So like you're gonna now trust that these people are telling me the truth, and then I'm telling you the truth. So I get it. But in that moment, we were pissed, and she would have got voted out 100%. I mean, I don't even know. But once again, I guess from a TV perspective, then what? You would have said, okay, everybody now cast your votes. We would have all fought. She would have been the guilty person, and we would have voted her out. Like I don't know. I don't know how it would have went. It would have been interesting.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But then I think if you cast your vote at that moment, then I guess that runs the risk of voting Tolu out, but also Tolu saying, somebody. But I guess you guys did have the numbers there as well, right? I think that is that
Well, I
how.
mean, she would have maybe got up and said, "Hey guys, Julie took money before, so why wouldn't she take it again?" Which would have planted a small seed of doubt. But I think she would have been able to tell Jake, like, Jake, I told you I didn't take it. Brian would have been like, I saw that look on your face. I know you didn't take it. No one would have thought it would have been me. No one would have thought it would have been Brian. No one would have thought it would have been Jake. So now it's 3-on-4. It would have been bad, but it would have been interesting to see everybody get up and vote in front of everybody. Like you stand
Yes.
next to Brooke, and Brian's like, "Do you want to vote anybody out?" And Brian has to say yes, Tolu, or whatever. That would have been
Yeah,
cool.
it definitely would have been because you're definitely in a different situation. I also feel like I also thought that, in my opinion, her taking that money. also took the idea of potentially voting somebody out off the table. I feel like, because if she takes the money and then like says, Jake, you're going home, I feel like she walks away from this like the biggest, more than likely, probably one of the biggest villains in like reality TV history, just because sure, it might have been a smart gameplay, the long play, but it would have been a really bad look. Yeah, I took 25 from the pot and kicked somebody out on the way out the door. That would have been crazy.
I mean, it would have made for good TV, but I
Yeah,
would
hell of a TV.
I'm not gonna lie, like when she was up there, when we knew it was her and we were waiting for her vote, once again, not worried for myself, but I was like, in my head, I was like, Jake's going home. I was like, this sucks. Like, I feel bad because like Jake wanted her out, and I was like, no, 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 she's good. You know what I mean? And then I was like, Jake's gonna go home, and then I was like, I'm gonna Venmo Jake $20,000 when I get home. I was like, because I'm the reason she stayed, and so thankfully, and then like she was funny about it. She's like, look, I'm a bitch, but I'm not that big of a bitch. Like, when she was all said and done. So
For sure. After watching it back, would you have played the game any differently knowing what you do now?
see, it's hard because like we get asked that, I get asked that question a lot. Like, I won. So like what would I do different? I mean, lose would be the only other thing. Maybe not take as many people to the ending with us. Like I would have rather have split, 300,000 three ways and walked away with 100 grand instead of 50. But also, 50 grand is great. And 50 grand to someone else who could really use 50 grand versus just 100 to me is cool too. You know what I mean? So, like, I know it's really going to help Julie. I know it's really going to help Tolu and Jake. So, like, if we can split that money and everybody makes 50 and it's a pretty good amount of money, that's also pretty nice. So, but of course, like not knowing the people taking human emotions out of it, like I wish I voted every time. Like the reality is, like I wish I just was like, fuck it. I played the exact game I played now, but I voted every single time, and just every time someone was gone. But that would have screwed me in the end because when you drop the list, then everyone would have said, "Oh, but if there was only two people left," and I'm like, "Hey, what's up? I never was gonna vote you out. But that's the thing, like that's where that whole strategy bites you in the ass. Like we had always said in the back of our heads, like, I wonder if there's ever gonna be some kind of reveal of who we voted for. Because no shows really ever show you who people voted for. You see them later on, you know? Like, so I did wonder, like, is there going to be a reveal at some point? So that's also in the back of your head. Like, if I'm an asshole now, is this going to come back to bite me later? And it did. Look at Lindsey. It's a
Exactly.
perfect.
That's what I was about to say. Like she's the perfect example. I thought that's probably one of my favorite twists I've seen in any reality show, was
That was
because
great.
you're putting, and not only are you putting the feet to the fire, it wasn't just say, hey, you can voluntarily say, no, we're going to add money to the pot for every person that does. And then, of course, when it comes down to, you're like, well, shit, I'm the only one not speaking. So then that puts a target on your back. But then even if she did speak, she put a target on her back. Like she was
If
stuck in a
you
rock
didn't,
and a hard place.
if you didn't show, you were getting eliminated no matter what. Because in my head, if you didn't show, that means you voted for me, Jake, or Brian. Because I wouldn't even have thought she voted for everybody else. I would have just been like, oh, at one point you voted for one of us. So therefore, now you got to go. So, and by showing, you showed that you voted for everybody. So it was, I mean, that game was great. And like, it's so funny because when Brooke's like, anyone want to go? I'm like, I'll go because everyone knew I voted for Winnie. We announced it. Brian's like, no problem. Jake's like, no problem. And then the girls, it was like, oh boy. Like we were like, this is gonna be good. So, and it was interesting. Like these games, like there were nights where I would be like laying in bed and I'm like, this is a really well done show. Like in my head, I'm like, this is really cool of a concept. Like, of course, are there things I would change? Of course, there are things I would change on Big Brother, and that's a huge show that's been around forever. So, you know what I mean? Like, but they're definitely, I was like, wow, this is so well thought out. Like the concepts, like the poker game was the best game of the the time that we were there. Like they don't show it. We played about 30 rounds of games. So like they don't show that there was a lot more fun involved in it then, you know, because it was like highs and lows. So it was like, you're laughing, you're fun, it's cool. And then it was like, ooh, oh, damn. Like, who do you hate in the house? Like, drop a chip. And it's like, and even in that game, like it's funny because once again, people say, "Oh, there was no strategy." There was strategy in that too. There came a point where Brian and I were clear cut, like getting every chip. It was like Brian ended with like 27, I ended up with like 22, whatever it was. And there came a point where I was like, "All right, like Brian's gonna win or whatever, or one of us is gonna win." So Brian and I were just feeding, and of course a lot of it was genuine, but I was like kicking Jake under the table too, like throw your chips on Brian because we knew that whatever the winner is going to get something. So like make sure that we just keep feeding the pot to our side. Cause like we were like, we can't have, you know, Winnie because she was our big threat win because we didn't know what the result would be.
Yeah, you
So
didn't know if somebody got the opportunity to do the old your all your votes are canceled out, and then
yeah,
there were so many different levels to every game there. Yeah, it was definitely funny because that scene is like cut it to like 3 or 4 or 5 minutes tops, and it was like 1 minute you see like Brian with one chip, and then the next minute you see him with like 500, and it's like what the
yeah.
hell?
That's
It's like
even with the lineup game, that game was about an hour long. And it was so fun. We had so much fun with it until the very end. And all they show is like maybe one or two fun ones. Maybe it was like, who's the best dressed? Who's the funniest? Who's the nicest? Like they were all like pretty lighthearted things. And then it was like, who would you shoot in the face? Like it's like, oh, I'd beat the shit out of you if I could. And now all of a sudden it was like everyone wanted to slit each other's throats. But that game was fun. Also, like when I went in the vault, we had no idea what was happening in the house because you're in the vault. The process of the vault takes a long time. You're in there for a long time. You're in there for like almost 2 hours. It felt like maybe like give or take an hour and a half, but like the leading up to it because like you got to get like camera angles in and this and that entering, you know, there's a lot of other production stuff. So it's so funny because we were gone and you know someone said there's no way you were in there that long. I go watch the footage, it's bright as day. When we go in, it's middle of the day, the sun's up, and then we come out, it's pitch dark, and it's quiet, the house is quiet, everybody's changed clothes. That's how many hours had passed between, you know, one thing to another. But anyway, when we came out, I think I said because it became a friggin' meme. So that's the only reason I know. It's like I think they forgot about us because when we came out of the house, like nobody would even look at us. And we're like, what the hell's going on? Because a lot of people are like, well, why didn't you save Jake? We didn't even know Jake was under all that fire. We had no clue. Like to us, people were mad, but it wasn't like oh my God, everybody's screaming. We just thought like people were annoyed, but it would be fine. So
yeah,
it's
you guys
fun.
came back from guys came back from the vault, and like shit had hit the fan, and you had no idea that was
No,
like
well, that's
yeah.
why, like, you can see we're having that meeting. No one's even looking at us. Everyone's just staring each other down. And we're like, all right, well, this is what happened. I'm like, no one seems to care. And they're like, no, we don't. I'm like, okay, cool. It actually worked out perfect for us because if that whole thing didn't happen, then maybe everybody hyper fixates on the vault and what happened and what we did in the vault, you know. But instead, it was just nobody cared. They were just like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. These guys were in the vault. Like, yeah, all right.
Yeah, I remember talking to Jake about it. He's like, "Man," he said that whole lineup thing. He says, "Man, they show only the most intense." He said, "We had so much fun
It was
with it."
great.
And then you see just the absolute worst part of it, the rest of the time. He said, he said to me, everybody there was having the time of their lives. And then it got to the more serious ones, and then it got crazy. And he says, "Man," he says, and we went from having fun to me being the biggest douche in the history of the world in like a matter of like, he said, like an hour.
Yeah. And like I said, like not just like, oh, we're fun on TV. Like it was just fun because it was like, who, you know, who's the most stylish? So then you have the girls were doing like a runway, you know, like trying to argue. And I'm like, I'll just go stand at the end of the line. Like I know it's not me, you know, like, and then like we're arguing for the back of the line. Like it was stupid, but it was funny. And like Brooke was involved and Brooke was laughing. And then it was like, nope, not fun anymore.
All right. I just want to do some quick fire question and answer before we go here. I'm going to put your feet to the fire here. Just have some fun. But who was the loudest person in the house?
Uh, Probably myself or Tolu.
Who do you think played the best game?
Um, Probably myself or Brian. No enemies. No one ever really came after us. Nobody wanted us gone. We got along with everybody.
Who is someone you became closest to outside the game?
I would say Brian.
Who was the best cook?
We didn't cook.
Oh, I didn't.
So
That was a question I thought I'd throw in there. I wasn't sure
I'm
if it
gonna
was.
say Netflix Productions.
There you go. You'll win them over with that one. Would you vote out Lindsey again?
Ah, Probably not. I mean, I didn't, I never, listen, I never wanted to have to do that. And it crushed me because I was like, her family's going to watch this. She's going to watch it. Like, I never want that. I've seen all the TikToks she's made about it, and she's made plenty. And like, she just was so blindsided, so upset by it. And it's like, I never wanted it to be that way. But like, from a game, and the thing is, Lindsay is a big reality TV show buff. So like Lindsay, when we saw each other in LA, was like from a game, I respect it. She's like, because from being a Big Brother super fan, like game respects game. And like, and you can't apologize for winning the game. Like I beat her at her own game in a way. I didn't want to look at it like that, but at the end of the day, we are playing a game. And if I'm worried that you're going to vote me out, the Chiefs aren't going to apologize for winning the Super Bowl, or the 49ers aren't going to be like, sorry, I beat you. Like, this is just the way it happened. So, I mean, but I probably wouldn't, because I genuinely don't think she would have voted or took the money. But I don't know, because she says all that now when the game's over and you can make yourself out to be, whatever you want to be. In the moment, she voted everybody out. So,
Yeah, that's the thing. Like to me, again, I think it was to me like if I look back and there's a lot of different moments that I look at and see like that was great gameplay. Like you are still on a reality show at the same. Like that's what I tried. There's a very human aspect to it, but it's also a game. You know what I mean? Like you're trying to win a prize, also make it to the end. Like there's a cash prize at the end of the game. There's a lot of stakes at play, so you have to look out for what's best for you, and then obviously the people within that group. And you realize in that moment, it's like, all right, well, and I think even one of you guys said, like, you're a loose cannon. Like, we don't really know where your head's at. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be on the chopping block on the final vote. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I agree with you. But all right, so what is next for you? Where can everybody find you on social media and stuff like that, my man?
So I am on a stand-up comedy tour right now, pretty much through the whole country, from now till I die, I guess. I don't know. I'll be all over. I don't know when this is going to air, but I'm in Rochester, New York. I'm in Chicago. I'm in Long Island. I'm in Jersey. I'm in Staten Island. I'm in Poughkeepsie. I'm in Connecticut. I'm in San Diego, Arizona, Austin. So I'm all over the place. So you can see me. You can go to my website, gasparrandazzo.com, or you can find me on Instagram at standuprandazzo, or TikTok and all that stuff. So, but I'm everywhere.
Yeah, and
So
and everybody listening to the show, I will link all of Gaspar's stuff in the comment section here of the body. Gaspar, so thank you so much for your time. It was just a pleasure chatting with you today, man.
thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.